Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
On Mark Dolan tonight in The Big Question, is the Tory leadership race already over? With Liz Truss odds-on favourite to become our new Prime Minister with the bookies, we'll be joined by Britain's longest-serving political editor Nigel Nelson, Margaret Thatcher's former advisor Niall Gardner and Conservative politician Emma Best. My Mark Meets guest is Carl Woods, famous for his appearances on reality TV and for being Katie Price's fiancé, but have they broken up as the press are reporting? He tells his story at 10. And in my big opinion monologue, my manifesto for the woman who looks destined for number 10. That is, of course, Liz Truss. And come on, England, what a victory in the Euros for the England women's team. We'll be celebrating that for the next 2 hours. First up, the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. Good evening. I am Bethany Elsey, here to get you up to date from the GB newsroom. The Lionesses have made footballing history by winning the Women's Euro 2022, England's first major championship win since the 1966 World Cup. England beat 9-time Euro champions Germany 2-1 after going into extra time. Their victory was in front of a record crowd of over 87,000 at Wembley Stadium. The Queen sent her congratulations, hailing their win as an inspiration for girls and women. Rosie Wright sent us this report from a fan zone in Trafalgar Square.
The Lionesses have done it. European champions. England beat Germany in an absolutely bitterly fought game. The first half, no goals. The second half, England scored, Germany equalised. We go to extra time, and in the second half of extra time, a sub comes on, scores, whips her shirt off in celebration, and the crowd here went wild. Record numbers of people came out to watch the Lionesses at Wembley. The atmosphere here has been tense and now one of absolute elation. The captain of the Lionesses said, "This is the match of fairy tales." Well, they have turned that into an incredible reality. England, European champions.
I've grown up playing football, being told I can't play with the boys. I work in women's football, like the difference this is going to make to us, to young girls, to young boys too. Like, it's just, I'm taking it all in. I'm emotional. I can't even put it into words what it means for us.
I think it's amazing. I think this is like a pivotal point in time for women's football, women in sport. It's amazing. Great weekend.
It shows that, yeah, Germany have won it so many times, but we can win it too, in that we're strong and that we can fight.
Will it inspire you to get on the pitch?
Yes, they've inspired me to already start playing, so it's going to inspire me even more, yeah.
Football is home. We're in Trafalgar Square. We've won the Euros. Nothing could be better.
The women did it.
Yeah, but we shouldn't say women or men. It's England. There we go. That's all it is. It's football is home. That's it.
In other news, police investigating the death of a 9-year-old girl in Lincolnshire have charged a 22-year-old man with her murder. Lilia Valutitier was stabbed on a street in Boston on Thursday. Lincolnshire police say Lithuanian national Davidas Skebas was arrested yesterday after information from the public. He'll appear at Lincolnshire Magistrates Crown Court tomorrow. The government has referred Archie Battersby's case back to the High Court for urgent consideration after the Barts Health NHS Trust said his life support will end tomorrow. The 12-year-old, who's in a coma after suffering brain damage, has been the subject of an ongoing legal battle, with his family fighting for his care to continue. A High Court judge previously ruled it's in Archie's best interest to disconnect his ventilator. The charity supporting his family says the latest move is a result of the UN's intervention. And the final 2 candidates in the Tory leadership contest have announced their latest policies. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says there won't be another Scottish independence vote if she becomes Prime Minister, telling the Sunday Telegraph she'll focus on strengthening the union, whilst former Chancellor Rishi Sunak promised to reform the NHS if he's elected, saying he'll introduce £10 fines for those who repeatedly miss GP or outpatient appointments. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now, let's get back to Mark Dolan.
Many thanks to Bethany Elsey, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In the big question, is the Tory leadership race already over? We'll be joined by Britain's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Nelson, Margaret Thatcher's former advisor, Niall Gardner, and Conservative politician, Emma Best. My Mark Meets guest is Carl Woods, famous for his appearances on reality TV and for being in a relationship with the rather famous Katie Price. In fact, they are engaged. But are they breaking up, as the press are reporting? Well, we'll get the definitive answer at 10 o'clock. In the news agenda with my panel, with that victory in the Euros today, is women's football here to stay? Is the dream of early retirement over? And do criminals have rights too? We'll discuss that later. Reacting to those stories and many more are my stellar panel tonight of writer, broadcaster and former Conservative MP Edwina Currie, health and wellbeing journalist and a brand new voice to Mark Dolan tonight, Emily Lavinia, and author, lawyer and broadcaster Rebecca Jane. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. The best part of my show is when you get in touch. And this programme has a golden rule. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. My big opinion is all about Liz Truss. And let's not forget, we'll be celebrating 11 amazing women throughout tonight's show. 11 women and their subs. Well done, England, for beating Germany at Wembley to lift the Euros Cup. But first, let's talk about another impressive woman. They think it's all over. It is now. No, I'm not talking about the football. Barring an outrageous scandal, Liz Truss, like England's victorious women's football captain Leah Williamson, has one hand on the trophy. Truss is now within her rights to pop to John Lewis and measure up for curtains at number 10. Although she may want to go for the budget option and pop to IKEA instead, because financial caution is going to be the theme of her premiership. She's been compared to the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher in a comparison she has willingly encouraged, if these photographs are anything to go by. Here's Thatcher in the tank, and here is Truss. Anything you can do, I can do better. Here is Thatcher again. And here's Truss. Well, you've got to stay warm in winter. And how about this, Thatcher? With what's called a pussy bow. I think we lose that strap for a second. Let's have a look at that blouse with a big fancy bow on it. OK, and then here is Truss. Uncanny. I've got to say, I feel naked without my pussy bow. And there are parallels between the two women. Fair-haired, attractive, assiduous, no-nonsense public servants from normal, unglamorous, middle-class backgrounds. and both educated in state schools. And as with Margaret Thatcher in 1979, Liz Truss will inherit an economic crisis as PM. Whilst we have mercifully low unemployment, as in 79, economic growth is through the floor, inflation is rampant, and the unions are once again holding the country to ransom. The free market-loving, tax aficionado, the woman that always wanted taxes low, Margaret Thatcher, began her first few years in power very cautiously and with a laser-like focus on inflation, the stealth tax that hurts everyone. So for Liz Truss, it's the economy, stupid, and tackling inflation is the only show in town. Thatcher did this by controlling public spending and raising interest rates. People and businesses suffered, but that painful, bad-tasting medicine paved the way for our astonishing economic recovery. By 1987, Britain was a global economic, military and diplomatic powerhouse. This was achieved through courage, conviction and tough choices. No pain, no gain. Liz Truss has said a lot of things that people want to hear. Tax cuts, tough border controls, a rethink of the Northern Ireland Protocol, and she won't grant that pint-sized bully Nicola Sturgeon a second referendum on independence. McBrexit will not happen on Liz Truss's watch. She'll move heaven and hell to exploit the colossal trade, tax and strategic opportunities that Brexit offers, work she's already done as Trade Secretary with all those amazing trade deals. She'll have no trouble defining what a woman is. She is one after all, and will hopefully take some inspiration from my new political hero, Kemi Badenoch. Badenoch, by the way, very much deserves a massive job in Truss's cabinet. Liz Truss can make herself the first anti-woke Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, tackling the toxic political correctness and bonkers ideas like critical race theory and trans ideology, which have so disgracefully infiltrated our institutions, corporations and the media. It may seem like a fringe issue at the moment, but things like cancel culture, the policing of free speech and biological men invading female-only spaces is beginning to affect everyone's lives. Parents are dealing with tearful daughters coming home from school who haven't used the loo all day long because it's unisex and there are boys in there. And women don't take kindly to being called cis women or birthing humans. If you called that to my mother, she'd give you a slap. Calling out this woke bullshit will, I guarantee you, sustain Truss in power for many years to come. Helped along by this man. Keir Starmer is the man who campaigned for Britain-hating Jeremy Corbyn to become Prime Minister, who tried to reverse Brexit, and who, with his inability to say what a woman is what I would call a vagina denier. Don't take my word for it. He can't bring himself to say only women have a cervix, demonstrating that he's got no backbone. And a group supporting women's sex-based rights called Labour Women's Declaration has been refused to stand at this year's Labour Party conference. Here's the brilliant journalist Sonia Soda drawing attention to this travesty in today's Observer. Funny that, isn't it? Labour want to erase women whilst the Tory party are about to make yet another one Prime Minister. Which is why I disagree with many commentators. If Truss builds a platform based on common sense and traditional Conservative values, not only will she win support from disgruntled Tory voters, I think she can hoover up millions of votes from Labour supporters too. Don't forget it was Margaret Thatcher who stormed to 3 landslide victories on the back not of Middle England Tory voters, whose support was a given, but millions of working-class, previously Labour-supporting Brits who loved the Iron Lady's vision of aspiration and opportunity for all. Buy the council house or the council flat that you live in. Start a business and make a better life for you and your family. What's not to like? My advice to Liz Truss when she gets the keys to number 10, which looks inevitable, can be summed up in 3 words. Be more Thatcher. Flawed though Thatcher was, she made mistakes, she could be heartless, and she certainly lost the plot towards the end as she isolated herself in an ideological bunker over the poll tax and Europe. But aside from Winston Churchill, she was the most important and effective British politician of the 20th century. Why? Because for most of her tenure, she was willing to deliver tough, painful policies to get the economy in shape and to reinvent and rehabilitate British society, its culture, and its institutions. She was straight with the British people about what needed to be done, and she never indulged in spin. She was authentic, she had a vision, and she was a fiscal and social conservative. Low tax, small state, family values. And a stunning victory over the Falkland Islands, which was in the balance for a while, demonstrated two of the qualities we need to see in Prime Minister Truss: patriotism and balls of steel. But notwithstanding the positive policy ideas that have come from the Truss camp, she mustn't indulge in the snake oil of sound bites. Truss's campaign has been an unapologetically populist one. But there's no point having great slogans without great delivery. Less is more. In the spirit of Margaret Thatcher, say what you're going to do and then get on and do it. Whether it was Blair, Cameron, or dare I say it, at times Boris, a sexy headline has all too often failed to be backed up by properly executed policies that actually improve people's lives. So forget about the opinion polls and the newspaper front pages. Thatcher never cared about that. She took pride in being at times wildly unpopular. Her skin was thicker than a Love Island contestant. But her commitment to her political vision earned her 3 stunning back-to-back election victories, and a country transformed from the bankrupt, lazy man of Europe, permanently on strike, to the 5th biggest economy on God's earth. You didn't have to like her. You had to respect her, and you had to believe her. So Prime Minister Liz Truss will have many problems in her inbox from day one. A war in the East, an energy crisis, and arguably the biggest economic emergency since the Second World War. But it's a colossal opportunity as well. She's got 2 years and just shy of an 80-seat majority, courtesy of Boris, to actually get some things done. Prime Minister Truss can't fix everything in 2 years, but as with Thatcher in the early 80s, she can set Britain on a path to recovery. She can unite the nation. She can shrink the state. She can begin to balance the books. She can get the economy growing again. She can start urgent NHS reforms. She can get serious about crime. She can restore British values to our public institutions. And she can defeat the toxic, divisive scourge of hard-left wokeism. Barring a disaster for her campaign, she's now got a 2-year job interview with the British people. If she gets it right, her preferred design of curtains will be hanging at the windows of number 10 for a long time to come. What's your view? Are you going to get behind the next Prime Minister, Liz Truss? Will she be a good Prime Minister? Will she be Margaret Thatcher Mark II? Let me know your thoughts, mark at gbnews.uk. Reacting to that, plus all of the big stories of the day, are writer, broadcaster and former Conservative MP Edwina Currie, wellbeing journalist Emily Lavinia, and author, lawyer and broadcaster Rebecca Jane. Edwina, let me start with you. You knew Margaret Thatcher, you served under her. Do you think that Liz Truss is cut from the same cloth?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, you're dead right that Liz Truss is trying to copy her, that pussy bow, which you would look rather fetching in, I thought, rather.
Thank you.
It was so blatant that I'm thinking, I'm getting suspicious. Mark, I went to the hustings in Leeds on Friday night. And I listened to an awful lot of promises coming out of Liz Truss, including, I'm in Leeds, so yes, I would like to see Leeds with its own metro, which is, like £3 billion of public spending. And yes, I would like to see the Northern Powerhouse happening, the Northern Powerhouse train, which is kind of Crossrail 2 going under the Pennines. The reason it's been put off is it's £18 billion. It's a lot of money. Now, if that's what she's doing, where she's going to all the 18 hustings, then the bill's going to amount to an awful lot of money. That's not Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher did cut taxes from extremely high levels to the relatively low levels that we have now, relatively low. And Margaret Thatcher, you could not get anything past her if it was going to cost money. You had to go and convince her to spend more. Liz Truss seems to be thinking that, well, you know, public spending is sweeties. You just throw them to everybody and they'll vote for her. I thought Rishi Sunak answered the questions far better. He was much crisper, very much on the ball, very knowledgeable. And if he's taking an unpopular stand of saying, look, let's be honest, we can't afford everything, and if the Tory party won't vote for him because of that, then so much the worse for all of us. That's what I think.
Emily Lavinia, a warm welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Great to have you on the show. What are your thoughts about Liz Truss? Are you impressed by her?
I mean, would I like to see a female Prime Minister of the UK? Yes, absolutely. Do I think it should be Liz Truss? In my opinion, perhaps not. I am not sure I'm convinced in terms of the policy and in terms of the rhetoric. I would also agree that there seems to be a lot of copycatism, and I'd like to see more of an authentic leader, especially if they're going to be the next female Prime Minister.
That's really interesting. So you're concerned there about authenticity. I mean, I'm not aware of your political affiliations, Emily, but the bottom line is we've all got skin in this game, haven't we? Because it's either Sunak or Truss that will be our next Prime Minister. So would you prefer Sunak?
I'm not sure. I mean, I would love to see another female Prime Minister, so I think it's probably too early for me to say, and I'm going to be watching very closely to see who my affiliation should lie with. At this point, I'm not convinced by Liz Truss, but, I mean, that remains to be seen. I could be convinced.
That's interesting, keeping your counsel, as many Tory grassroots voters will be doing. Rebecca Jane, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm on Team Nobody. And I don't think either of them are going to convince me that they're a good option. So, unfortunately, yeah, I kind of second Edwina on this, that I think that Liz Truss is just throwing all the bells and whistles at what people want to hear, and I think it's an absolute load of nonsense. She's just... I don't believe any of them. We know that. You know very much what my stance is that I have no faith in any of them whatsoever. So, unfortunately, I don't think there's any authenticity with her whatsoever. I don't think there's any with Rishi either. And I think that we just need somebody else. Kemi, I would like her back, please.
Yes, although don't you think that Liz Truss is at the sort of anti-woke end? She's had no trouble defining what a woman is, and she's said that she's going to get rid of the woke nonsense.
Yeah, and that's probably the only thing that I agree with her on, and I really would like to see us go a little bit more back to basics, a little bit more traditional, because we've all fallen into this trap that we're all scared to death to say anything about anybody, and we do need to become less woke, and I'm not afraid to say it, unlike a lot of people. So that's about the only thing that I'm with her on. The rest of it, load of nonsense, and she's just saying what she wants to get the people on her side.
My panel don't sit on the fence. What's your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk? We put out a Twitter poll earlier in the evening and we asked, will Liz Truss be the new Margaret Thatcher? And let me tell you that 37.4% said yes, 62.6% are with Rebecca Jane, and they're saying no. A fascinating conversation. I think you'll agree we're travelling business class, first class with my panel tonight, and lots to get through with Edwina, Rebecca Jane and Emily, including in the news agenda. Is women's football here to stay? Is the dream of early retirement over? And wait for this, do criminals have rights too? We'll discuss that later in the programme. But next in the big question, is the Tory leadership race over? Is Liz Truss now officially our next Prime Minister? We'll ask Edwina to stick around and contribute to that, alongside Margaret Thatcher's former Chief Political Advisor, Niall Gardner, and a top political journalist as well, and someone with a Tory vote. So we'll catch all of you in just a couple of minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Lots of support for Liz Truss, a big reaction to my big opinion monologue. Gordon says Liz Truss will stand up for the whole of the UK and face down the EU. She's the only one of the two who will remove the Northern Ireland Protocol. Slippery Sunak is too soft on the EU and he's a backstabber. Beautifully put. Thank you so much for that, Gordon. Matthew suggesting that John Redwood should be Liz Truss's Chancellor. What a wonderful thought that would be. Certainly he believes in low tax and his mantra is go for growth, a true Thatcherite to his core. Would be interesting to see him return to public life. How about Marion? Mark, where did you get your Sunak supporting panel from? I prefer Liz Truss and far prefer her to Sunak. He's so smarmy and has nothing in common with ordinary hard-working families. Edwina was wrong over eggs and she's wrong now. I will never vote Conservative if Sunak is PM. Well, Marion, thank you for that. It's all about opinions. Edwina, I thought you were very brave when you called out the problems in the egg industry. I think it's your legacy that our British eggs are now so safe and so delicious. But it's all about opinions. Keep them coming, Mark, at gbnews.uk. It's time for this. We're going to have an excellent debate. You're welcome. I'm here all week. It's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss appears to have one hand on the trophy, a comment I made in my big opinion monologue, which you can now catch on the GB News Twitter feed. Yes, Truss is now the odds-on favourite to become our next PM following Rishi Sunak's faltering campaign, which has seen a negative focus on his tax policies, his abrasive debating style, and the accusation that he's too rich, too slick, and too out of touch to lead the country. So, is the Tory leadership race already over? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome London Conservative Assembly member Emma Best, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and Britain's longest-serving political editor. A warm first welcome to Mark Dolan tonight, to Nigel Nelson, of course, legendary journalist, political editor at the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People, and former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie. Nigel, let me start with you. Is it all over, bar the shouting?
It does look like it. I think at the moment Liz Truss has to implode for Rishi Sunak to have a chance, although he's obviously put an awful lot of thought into his campaign. And it looks like by the policies he's coming out with, very well thought out, which means he's been planning this for months, if not years. But Liz Truss is certainly coming across as more popular, I think for the wrong reasons, because of tax cuts. But the race still has a long way to run. Bear in mind that Tory members actually get 2 votes, so they can vote in the postal ballot, which starts tomorrow, and then they could change their minds with an online vote, and it's the last one that will be taken. But yes, I think at the moment it looks like Liz Truss's race to lose.
What would need to happen for Sunak to win at this point, Nigel?
Well, we'll have to see what else he comes up with. I mean, once they start voting. I'm a bit worried about the fact that Rishi Sunak started off by trying to actually be the sensible candidate. He was the one who was saying, we really can't afford tax cuts at the moment. What we've got to do is try and control inflation first, and tax cuts come further down the road. Since then, he seemed to panic a bit about this and started to announce tax cuts. And of course, there may be more as he gets a bit more desperate. So Rishi Sunak, I think, started the week, apart from his bullying of Liz Truss, which didn't go down terribly well, he started the week looking certainly the most prime ministerial. I thought he was very good under the forensic questioning of Andrew Neil. So all in all, he is probably a better candidate, but the impression goes that people want to go for the tax cuts, and that means Liz Truss.
That's right. Final thoughts on this before I go to the rest of my panel, Nigel. And it's in relation to Liz Truss and whether she just needs to keep her powder dry now. I mean, do you think she should face Andrew Neil? That's something I'll be raising as an issue in my take at 10. But do you think she ought to face Andrew Neil in a one-to-one interview?
Well, I'm certainly not on Liz Truss's campaign team, but if I was, I would say, no, don't do it. I think Rishi Sunak came out quite well. I'm not sure Liz Truss would be able to do the same job that Rishi did. Boris Johnson won the leadership without going on Andrew Neil, and probably at this time she's best to avoid it.
Yes, now let me come to Emma Best. It appears, doesn't it, Emma Best, that this one is Liz Truss's to lose at this stage?
I certainly agree with you. It's definitely Liz Truss's to lose at the moment. The momentum is certainly with her. But I think actually what you can see, and we've just alluded to the fact that the Conservative voters will have a long time now to change their vote with that online system. The hustings have only just begun. And one thing you know about Conservative voters they are conservative, little c. So a lot of people will be holding on to that vote just to see what happens over the next month before giving their final casting their final vote. And you've actually seen that in the polls there. Yes, Liz is in front, but actually when you include the don't knows, there's a lot of movement there. So she certainly has the momentum at the moment, but nothing is in the bag. And we've seen recently a day or maybe 4 hours even is a long time in politics, let alone the next 6 weeks. So, a lot can happen from now.
Yes, Emma Best, do you remember Theresa May's disastrous manifesto going into the 2017 general election? Written by Nick Timothy, her advisor, and it was a really, really, I suppose it was an honest and rather depressing manifesto that suggested to people they might have to sell their home in order to pay for social care. So it was an honest manifesto, but it backfired horribly. Has Rishi Sunak made the same mistake with his message of no tax cuts?
No, actually, I think that is the one seller for Rishi. I think people believe that what he's saying is there's conviction behind the plan. It's certainly a well thought out option. Whether you believe that's the best option at this moment in time for the country or not, you certainly can't deny that it's thought out. And I think that resonates with people because actually they're looking for conviction politicians who believe in what they say and are honest when they say it. And that element of what Rishi is selling, I think people are buying. I think it is the rest of the package and perhaps the history, which is the issue with Tory voters that I speak to. And that's the thing that, he's got a few weeks to overcome it. And yes, that looks like a massive mountain at the moment.
Yes, Niall, I'm going to come to you in a moment, but Edwina Curry, you're nodding your head there. Whoever got elected on a bad news, doom and gloom manifesto? Rishi Sunak's telling everyone there will be no tax cuts and the country's broke. It's all very depressing, isn't it? Whereas Liz Truss is offering hope and optimism.
Yeah, well, whoever got elected on slogans and promises and then found they couldn't deliver them. It's very easy indeed to produce all sorts of promises and all sorts of, knee-jerk responses and all that kind of political stuff. But actually what we're doing is electing somebody who's going to be running the country for the next couple of years. And if we make a hash of it and inflation keeps going up, which it will, if there is too much government money flowing out into the economy in the way that Liz Truss is promising, if we make a hash of it and we have inflation, when we get to the next general election, it's going to be curtains for the Conservatives. It's really important that the next couple of years the economy is run well, that we rein in inflation, that we have to take some difficult decisions. I can't see Liz Truss doing any of that. I really can't. She seems to be very quick indeed to say whatever she thinks is going to get her elected by the party. For me, that's not really good politics. Really good politics is doing what's best for the country.
Well, it's working, though, Edwina. She's winning.
Heaven help us all, then. I mean, if that's what the trivial nature of the 160,000 members of the Conservative Party, if that's where we've got to, then I think that's a tragedy. I don't think so. From what I found, being surrounded by people who are all long-term members of the party, like myself, in Leeds, at the city where she went to school, and with a lot of, sensible people from all over the north of England there, she didn't get this quite rapturous response. People were listening hard to the questions. They were listening hard to the answers. And Rishi Sunak actually knows his stuff in detail far better. Rishi Sunak has a world-class background, absolutely astonishing. And the idea as well, if I may say so, that we, the Conservatives, would reject somebody for being too successful, for having made his own money and done it extremely well. He didn't inherit all that. He actually earned it. He's absolutely superb. We would be crazy to reject him as Prime Minister, and we would regret it, I'm sure.
Oh, Rishi Sunak still in the race, according to Conservative icon Edwina Currie. Well, let's talk about another Conservative icon, Margaret Thatcher, and a man who knew her intimately well, broadcaster, writer and former top advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner. Niall, welcome to the show.
Many thanks, Mark. Great to be here.
Great to have you on the show. An impossible question to answer. I specialise in those. Which of these two candidates might Margaret Thatcher have anointed?
Well, Mark, I have to say that I think, Rishi Sunak's campaign has been an absolute disaster. And, the key reason for that is that Sunak doesn't really come across as a conservative. And I think he is responsible, actually, for a lot of the, the inflation that we see in place at the moment. He's been a big spending chancellor. He does not have Thatcherite instincts. And the Conservative Party today is, in essence, I think, within the grassroots, a Thatcherite party. And they are overwhelmingly rejecting Rishi Sunak. And I think his chances of becoming Prime Minister are extremely low. Liz Truss, in contrast, I think, has run a spectacularly good campaign. Her instincts are definitely Thatcherite. And I would say that Liz Truss would make an extremely good Prime Minister, actually. And so she has, in many respects, I think, emulated, Margaret Thatcher on various policy fronts. She is instinctively a tax cutter. She is someone as well who, as Foreign Secretary, has been, I think, an outstanding figure on the world stage, standing up to both the Russians and the Chinese, in contrast to Rishi Sunak, who I have to say is a real appeaser of the Chinese especially. Liz Truss, I do think, as Prime Minister, would be in a different league to Rishi Sunak, and with very good reason. Conservative grassroots voters are rejecting, the slick, campaign of Rishi Sunak, really because he isn't, in essence, I think, a true conservative, and that's why he's sinking in the polls.
Well, isn't that a bit harsh, Niall Gardner? Because your former boss, Margaret Thatcher, as I mentioned in my Big Opinion monologue, perhaps the most authentic politician of her generation, the second most important politician of the 20th century, in my view, behind Churchill. She was authentic. And the bottom line about Rishi Sunak is he's been a Tory since he was in, shorts, since he was a child, campaigning against Britain's membership of the European Union in his teenage years. Meanwhile, Liz Truss started life as a Lib Dem and campaigned for Remain. Many could argue she's a fake.
Well, certainly Liz Truss started off as a Liberal Democrat. And I think Rishi Sunak actually started off also on the left. If you look at his days as a student at Winchester College, for example, not quite a sort of young Thatcherite figure. But Liz Truss today is a devout and very strong Brexiteer. She has an outstanding record, I think, in government of advancing Brexit. You saw that as International Trade Secretary. You've seen that as Foreign Secretary. I think Brexit is safe in her hands. With Rishi Sunak, on the other hand, yes, he voted for Brexit. What has he actually done to advance Brexit, actually? He didn't do a great deal as Chancellor. He didn't stand up to the EU. In fact, I would describe, Rishi Sunak as actually very weak-kneed in the face, not only of the Chinese, but also in the face of the European Union as well. Liz Truss is a lot tougher, a lot stronger. And I think the EU really fears, Liz Truss, actually. The Euro-federalists absolutely hate her. That's a very, very good sign, actually, for Liz Truss as a possible Prime Minister.
Although her aping of Margaret Thatcher's iconic moments, including, similar outfits and similar rhetoric, is that not slightly cringeworthy, would you say, Niall Gardner? Do you think she does herself any favours by inviting these Thatcherite comparisons?
Well, I think it's a good thing if you have the front runner to be the next Prime Minister emulating Margaret Thatcher. That's a great thing to see. And I didn't see any problem with that. And I do think that, Liz Truss genuinely believes in Thatcherite principles and ideals. And that's very promising for somebody who is highly likely to be the next PM. I think that Sunak's chances of being PM are close to zero, judging by all the polls in place. In contrast, Liz Truss is in the driving seat to become the next Prime Minister. She clearly admires Margaret Thatcher. She seeks to emulate Margaret Thatcher. That can only be a big positive, in my view.
We're speaking to you live from Washington in the United States. Which of the two would be a more commanding global figure and would win respect in the White House, Sunak or Truss?
Well, I think without a doubt, Liz Truss would be a far stronger figure on the world stage than Rishi Sunak. Sunak, I think, would be very weak-kneed, actually. In fact, he'd be quite a wet on the world stage. You also need a Prime Minister who is actually going to stand up to Joe Biden over the Northern Ireland Protocol. I think Liz Truss will do absolutely that. Rishi Sunak will just bow down to whatever the White House wants. And that is not in the British national interest. You need a Prime Minister who's going to stand up for Britain on the world stage. And I think that Liz Truss will do that in spades.
Nigel Nelson, political editor at the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People. I think that it would have to take a scandal for Liz Truss to now lose this race. I think she's got her name on the cup, as it were. However, you can't rule out a scandal, can you? Are there any skeletons in her closet?
I've got no scandals to offer you, Mark, so I don't know. But you're absolutely right that it could be something that is completely unexpected that comes out that would do for Liz Truss, equally for Rishi Sunak, for that matter, or indeed any politician. That's what scandals do. I think that the main issue at the moment is that what you said earlier, she keeps her powder dry. She doesn't go into situations where she's likely to make mistakes. But I find myself it's odd to be agreeing with Edwina, but I do on this one. I think the real danger here is that, as Edwina says, if you've got inflation running at the rate it is at the moment, what you don't do is pump more money into the economy, which just adds to it. And that is what Liz Truss is planning to do. Now, if Tory voters go for that, for some short-term bit of jam on the bread, I'm not sure that will actually work. The only way Liz Truss can get out of that, of course, is to call a really early election. A new leader always looks like a new government. John Major proved that when he took over from Margaret Thatcher. So if she ran for an election, say, in spring next year, she might be able to capitalise on a honeymoon period.
Do you think she might go for that? Is that something that you're hinting at, Nigel Nelson, a snap election from our new Prime Minister early next year?
Yeah, I just think that you just look at history and where things have gone wrong before. Gordon Brown wouldn't have lost in 2010 had he gone to the country soon after he became Prime Minister. So you have about 6 months before people actually find you out. So again, I think there should be a general election and I think Labour should win it. But if I was Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, I'd be thinking about going in spring next year to capitalise on their novelty value.
Finally, on this one, Nigel, the Tory leadership race, it seems to be the tortoise versus the hare, but we know how that one played out. Might the duration of this contest ultimately favour Sunak?
I think it depends on how the voting goes. if Tory members, and bear in mind, we're talking about a very small electorate here of 160,000 people, if Tory voters want to let this play out, we've got a load more hustings to come. That I can imagine that Rishi Sunak has more policies up his sleeve that he'd want to unveil. It may be, if it goes long, that Rishi Sunak will benefit. But I think that I'm not a Tory, so I don't know how the members are thinking. But if they're thinking of voting early and they don't change their vote later on, then obviously Liz Truss is by far the favourite.
Emma Best, which of the two candidates are you leaning into at the moment?
Well, I have to say, absolutely Liz for me, and I have to respectfully disagree with Edwina. I think that Liz has shown that she is a conviction politician and she does deliver. I remember there was a period when everything felt slightly gloomy in British politics, and it was Liz that kept on bringing in those big deals for Britain. When it comes to all these big questions on the global stage, she is the person that it seems has never shied away from that and has been on the right side of that debate from an early period. Now, I know the U-turns in her positions over the years have been mentioned, but I think that just shows somebody that is of conviction, that when they know they're wrong, they will change their position happily and they will commit to it. And that, I think, has happened with Brexit. I think anybody that's trying to say, you know, Liz Truss is some sort of secret Remainer trying to get out and weasel our way back into the EU, you know, that's absolutely fallacy. You know, that's not true. She is one of the most ardent Brexiteers now, and she has been on the front line of making that work for Britain. So I believe that Liz Truss is head and shoulders at the moment able to deliver. But I will say, because I do think we need to unite as a party, that both Rishi and Liz make a head and shoulders better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer would.
Emma Best, finally, do you fancy a snap election? Liz Truss wins and she goes to the country in the spring of 2023?
Absolutely not. And I think, and the reason I think even the opposition should admit this is with the global crisis as it is, to go to an election now in the UK would be fiscally so damaging for our economy, and it is not the right thing to do. What we need is stability. We can all admit that we are having a period of stagnation as this leadership contest goes on. And what we do need is stability. And I think beyond trying to think about a Conservative election, what is most important to everybody is the success of the United Kingdom. And to go to a snap election now would be absolute detriment to that.
Edwina, you're nodding. I don't think you fancy a snap election. Has this contest been good or bad for the Conservative Party, Edwina?
Well, we'd all rather not have had all this contest. We would all rather have had Boris behaving himself, so we weren't all ending up having to defend the indefensible with him becoming the main topic of conversation. But we are where we are, as they say. Heaven save us, Mark, from another general election before we need it. Apart from anything else, it'd be utterly irresponsible. The country does face all sorts of challenges, serious ones. You've got inflation, you've got the war in Ukraine, you've got a whole host of other issues. We've got strikes, we've got everybody worried sick about this winter. And for a government to start calling elections, whether it's now or whether it's in the spring, it would be putting at risk the very large majority that we've got, instead of putting that majority to use to produce policies and to produce some action and to produce some results that we can then go to the public with in due course when the time is right.
My thanks to Edwina Curry, who joins us later on the panel, and also my warm and grateful thanks to London Conservative Assembly member Emma Best, the former top aide to Margaret Thatcher, writer and broadcaster and commentator Niall Gardner, live from Washington in the United States, and a true journalistic and broadcasting legend, Britain's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Nelson, the political editor at the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People. A fascinating conversation. What's your view? Is the race for number 10 already over? Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up in the news agenda with my panel, we'll be asking, is the dream of early retirement over? Do criminals have rights too? And in my take at 10, Andrew Neil's been tweeting about GB News. My response, you won't want to miss it. But next up, we're celebrating England's incredible victory in the Euros. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Wonderful news. England created history by winning their first major tournament in football. They beat Germany 2-1 after extra time in front of almost 90,000 fans at Wembley. Substitute Chloe Kelly scored the winning goal in the 110th minute. Joining me to react to a historic day for English football is former England forward Leanne Sanderson, who has 50 caps for England. Leanne, welcome to GB News and hooray!
Yeah, finally it's coming home, you know. Since 1966, first major trophy, as you can see in the background. I'm just still at Wembley now. You know, we just came off air and it's just amazing. It's been a fantastic tournament for the nation and just everybody's just been enjoying it. And I think that's the most amazing thing. The atmosphere was not hostile. It was a very nice one. You know, the fans were well behaved during this whole tournament and it's been brilliant. It really has. And I'm just so proud of the team. Being a former Lioness myself, you know, we got to the final in 2009 and we lost 6-2 to Germany. So this shows you where we're at now.
Well, I think you're part of that victory because it's the many brilliant teams that have led up to this victory today. The FA have been focused on this for a long, long time.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, there's a lot of situations where they say they've got a 5-year plan, but this one's actually paid off. And I think, you know, I played for England for a number of years, got 50 caps, scored 15 goals. And a lot of my former teammates were out there tonight and they were enjoying every single moment. When the final whistle went, I mean, when Chloe Kelly scored that goal at the end of the game, I was so emotional. I started crying when I was on air because it means so much, you know. And I think the fact that it's inspired the whole nation in the way that it has, I think that's the most important thing. And these girls are rock stars. And a lot of them have been plucked from complete obscurity. Not many people knew about the Lionesses before this tournament. And I think it's been so amazing. I'm really proud of the team. They deserve everything they're going to get and everything that's coming their way. And all the people that paved the way before them, absolutely brilliant as well. And Serena Wiegmann's been in the job only since September. And it was absolutely fantastic tonight. And they went that one step further and won.
Leanne, you've devoted your life to women's football. What does this win mean for the game?
I think it's massive for the women's game. I think it's massive for football. I think all those young girls can now aspire to be gold medalists and aspire to be the next Beth Mead and Alicia Russo. And a lot of them already are. They're in the school playground doing the Russo because she scored that amazing back heel. And we can see scenes now from Box Park. And, you know, no one's trying to be like the men's team. I think that's the biggest difference. I think a lot of people are quick to compare. And it bothers me because you don't compare Serena Williams to Roger Federer. It's completely different. So we're trying to do our own thing. Everybody's getting on board now, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the whole nation's behind the team, and they should get all the front pages, the back pages, and all the in-betweens tomorrow.
Listen, I love women's football, Leanne, and I love men's football. Could you put into words what the difference is between the two games? Is there a difference?
I think there's a big difference with regards to, I wouldn't say quality, but the pace and the intensity. But one thing I will touch upon is this whole tournament, the fans have been brilliant. And I think, you know, there's been fans today that had Sweden jerseys on, Spain jerseys on, and it's been a real, tournament. It's been a real big party for everybody. And that's how football should be. We don't need people throwing beer at anybody. We don't need people being nasty. It's about being pleasant. And, the girls have brought it home. But like I said, I don't want to draw comparisons. I think people can make their own minds up, their own assumptions. If people don't like women's football, that's totally up to them. But people that have that mindset will be left in the past, really, because dinosaurs are in the past and they will be. They'll be left behind because everybody wants to be involved in the women's game now, and it's fantastic to see everybody enjoying it. It really is.
Leanne, what are you hoping to do in the future in relation to the game?
I think I want to bring what this has done is brought more attention to the fact that PE in schools is not offered. Ian Wright brought that to everybody's attention. I think these girls have now got a platform. If we didn't win, I still think they've done amazing things. But the fact that they've won the tournament now can only help, the legacy of the Lionesses. But all of the players in the WSL, the Women's Super League in England, there's still much more that needs to be done. Hopefully the attendances will be better in the WSL based upon tonight and based upon this whole tournament. 9 million people watched the tournament during, the semi-final. 9 million. So when people say, people don't care, people don't want to know, they do know. I think maybe over 14 million tonight watched, from what I heard. Prince William was here, hugging people in a way that I've never seen him hug people before. So it's brilliant.
They're all heroes, incredible athletes, very skillful. Are you comfortable with the term Lionesses? Is that going to stick?
Yeah, definitely. And it's been around for a few years now. I think those people that just came on board to women's football this tournament, welcome to the party. And it's going to be a fantastic one. And you've joined at the perfect time because they're winners. So, it's our first trophy since 1966. And all the players are out there enjoying it, singing Sweet Caroline. And, it is what it is now. And this is where women's football is. And this is where it's going to be in the future. And I'm happy to be part of it, being a former player myself.
Well, that's right, Leanne. You are a hero too because you're part of England's history. Thank you so much for joining us at the Box Park in Wembley. And have a brilliant night. And come on, England.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Emily, is women's football here to stay?
Well, I myself have always been an advocate for women's sports and have always been and will continue to be. But yes, I would say it is here to stay. I think it's a shame that, when we first won the World Cup, we still had a 5-year ban to serve as women due to the FA.
Yeah.
At this point, that means we've got a lot of catching up to do. But I think given that, 2 of the scorers were subs, that says a lot about the quality of the female players, of, players in general across women's sport. There is so much effort, there is so much heart, there is so much skill. Yes, we have catching up to do, especially in terms of sponsorship. Let's not pretend that it's not a business, because football is.
Yeah.
But, absolutely, it is here to stay.
What about this moment for women in general?
Well, I do think it is historical. I think that we have often been overlooked, and it's very difficult sometimes to have the limelight in the game of sport. I think people have made amazing strides, but, we are just getting started.
Yes,
so...
I mean, we may well have a female prime minister, and there are so many heroes across industry, art, culture, you name it. But to have women winning football, something that's perceived as a very male-dominated sport, that's another moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would love to see, obviously, more female CEOs, more captains of industry. But, when it comes to some of the best sporting teams in the world being all women, absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, what a moment. I'm just so happy. I'm grinning from ear to ear, Rebecca Jane.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think that for me, I look at this and for years, because obviously I come from quite a male-dominated industry as well. And I've always said, law, private investigation, especially private investigation, like we were the only sort of women's investigation company that there was out there. So I come from a really dominated male background. But for me, I always had the point of actually females are absolutely equal. We get the job done. We're just there in the background being quite quiet about it. And I think that with the football situation, it's been exactly the same thing. That all of a sudden we've all been focused on the men and what they're doing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here come the women and boom, we've won.
Yeah, and this is a global event, of course. So, the English can be proud all over the world for our amazing women.
I think that's absolutely right. Thank you very much for saying so, Mark. I'm here sitting with 3 ladies.
I'm just on my best behaviour.
But you asked what's the difference. There are 2 differences. The first is the women won. Yeah. The men did not win.
Yes.
With all the best will in the world.
And with all the money and investment the men have had.
With all the billions. The women actually won. And the second reason is it's wonderful football. They're not diving. It's not.
No, I
dodging.
totally. It's fair play. Honestly, what a spectacular game. We'll be celebrating later. Next up, I'll be dealing with Andrew Neil in my take at 10. You won't want to miss it.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan tonight. In the news agenda with my panel, is the dream of early retirement over? Find out more on that shortly. And also, do criminals have rights too? We'll discuss that. And my Mark Meets guest is Carl Woods. He is a reality star. He's got a rather famous fiancée in Katie Price. Have they broken up? As the press are reporting, we'll find out shortly. He's a great guy. Can't wait to chat to him very shortly. And after this, my take at 10, I'll be dealing with Andrew Neil, formerly of this parish. Find out why after the headlines with someone that's never leaving GB News, Bethany Elsey.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. I am Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB newsroom. The Lionesses have made footballing history by winning the Women's Euro 2022, England's first major championship win since the 1966 World Cup. England beat 9-time Euro champions Germany 2-1 after going into extra time. Their victory was in front of a record crowd of over 87,000 at Wembley Stadium. The Queen sent her congratulations, hailing their win as an inspiration for girls and women. GB News reporter Rosie Wright has the latest from Trafalgar Square.
The Lionesses have done it. European champions. England beat Germany in an absolutely bitterly fought game. The first half, no goals. The second half, England scored, Germany equalised. We go to extra time, and in the second half of extra time, a sub comes on, scores, whips her shirt off in celebration, and the crowd here went wild. Record numbers of people came out to watch the Lionesses at Wembley. The atmosphere here has been tense and now one of absolute elation. The captain of the Lionesses said, "This is the match of fairy tales." Well, they have turned that into an incredible reality. England, European champions.
I've grown up playing football, being told I can't play with the boys. I work in women's football. Like, the difference this is going to make to us, to young girls, to young boys too. Like, it's just, I'm taking it all in. I'm emotional. I can't even put it into words what it means for us.
I think it's amazing. I think this is like a pivotal point in time for women's football, women in sport. It's amazing. Great weekend.
It shows that
Yeah, Germany have won it so many times, but we can win it too in that we're strong and that we can fight.
Will it inspire you to get on the pitch?
Yes, they've inspired me to already start playing, so it's going to inspire me even more, yeah.
Football is home. We're in Trafalgar Square. We've won the Euros. Nothing can be better.
The women did it.
Yeah, but we shouldn't say women or men. It's England. There we go. That's all it is. It's football is home. That's it.
And congratulations to them. Now I'll bring you up to date with some of the other day's news. Police investigating the death of a 9-year-old girl in Lincolnshire have charged a 22-year-old man with her murder. Lilia Valutitio was found stabbed on a street in Boston on Thursday. Lincolnshire police say Lithuanian national Davidas Skebas was arrested yesterday after information from the public. He'll appear at Lincoln Magistrates Court tomorrow. The government has referred Archie Battersby's case back to the High Court for urgent consideration. The 12-year-old, who's in a coma, has been the subject of an ongoing legal battle, with his family fighting for his care to continue. Barts Health NHS Trust has said his life support treatment will end tomorrow afternoon, after a High Court judge previously ruled his care could end. And it's emerged that the Prince of Wales's charitable fund accepted a donation from the family of notorious terrorist Osama bin Laden in 2013. The Sunday Times reports that Prince Charles secured the money after meeting Bakir, who is the half-brother of bin Laden, privately. Clarence House says the decision to accept the money was taken solely by trustees after careful consideration, with information sought from a wide range of sources, including government. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests and big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, is the dream of early retirement over? And do criminals have rights too? Plus another topical game show and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And my Mark Meets guest is Carl Woods. He's an entrepreneur, a reality star and quite well known for being Katie Price's fiancé. But are they still together? Get the inside story very, very shortly. But first, it's time for my take at 10. I didn't stop following Andrew Neil when he left GB News. It's a free country, and this legendary journalist is free to ply his skills wherever he chooses. Well, I'm pleased to say that after a few barbed remarks about GB News, Andrew Neil has found himself a new home at Channel 4, where I worked for many years on Balls of Steel and other entertainment shows and documentaries. He's done a brilliant job. His grilling of Rishi Sunak this week was characteristically surgical and ruthless. In fact, the only chink in Liz Truss's armour so far is her refusal to face this Grand Inquisitor. Why not face Andrew Neil in a TV studio? Is she not confident in her abilities? Is she not across her brief? Has she got something to hide? In the end, if you're not willing to face this formidable Scotsman in a TV studio, you're neither fit nor ready for power. It was hugely disappointing when Boris Johnson similarly ducked out of a grilling from Mr. Neil. As I said earlier, I think Truss has all but won the race, and I think she'll be a great Prime Minister. But I'd still urge her to cement her victory by facing the big man from Paisley. Surviving Andrew Neil is the ultimate political mandate. And when it comes to Andrew and GB News, things are looking up. It appears to be water under the bridge. He tweeted the following this week. GB News, he said, is now giving Sky News a run for its money on primetime, helped by the fact that primetime Sky News is, to use a technical term, crap. They got rid of green propaganda programme that nobody watched but improved marginally. Whoever's in charge should be sacked. How right he is. I've got to say I'm normally beating Sky News at about this time. All thanks to you. We're growing by the day with amazing viewing figures for a channel just a year old. And we're delivering a product at a fraction of the budget of our rivals. We already have billions of views across all digital platforms and more subscribers to YouTube, Facebook and Twitter than you can shake a stick at. And myself and my colleagues here go viral every 10 minutes, including my big opinion monologue from this Friday's show. It's gone bonkers. My warning about the threat of wokeism to Western values has clocked up a combined 200,000 views on Twitter and Facebook alone. We've been punching above our weight since day one. GB News is here to cover the news and debate it in a fresh and energetic and, where possible, entertaining way. And at the heart of what we do is giving you a voice. We are the People's Channel. That's what motivates us. That's what drives us. So if you're enjoying the channel and if you're enjoying this show, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. Many thanks to Andrew Neil for getting us started in the first place and for burying the hatchet. I'll be honest, if he keeps this up and plays his cards right, we might just have him back. This. It's time now for Mark Meets. Let's do it. Yes, indeed, it's time for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, Carl Woods, reality star, Instagram sensation, and the other half of one of the best-known women in the country, Katie Price. He's also one of the few influencers in the public eye that's actually got a proper job. His passion for cars has seen him become a highly successful car dealer. But there have been rumours in the press over the last 24 hours that Katie and Carl have split, with Katie reportedly telling her fans she's single. So what is the truth? We'll get to that shortly. But let's just say, Carl Woods, welcome to GB News.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can I just say I feel like very ugly sat here next to you.
Don't be stupid, of course not. I mean, right, I could never pull a tie off like that.
Well, that's very nice of you. You can pull my tie off anytime you like.
I'm sure.
Carl, look, it's great to have you on the show. Yeah, I mean, you dabbled in a bit of reality TV, a brief appearance in Love Island. I know it's not exactly how you don't want to be defined by it, but I mean, was it fun at the time?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was less than 5 minutes, so I think I hold the record for being in there the least amount of time. But I'm OK with that, and thank you for mentioning that I do actually have a proper job.
You do, indeed.
Not a lot of people know that.
Well, that's right. So you're a car dealer, and you've been crazy about cars for a long time.
Yeah, for a long time. I mean, I was always brought up with cars, and then when I went and got my first job, I was always buying my car and selling it because I got bored, and I thought, do you know what? I should do this, because I always had an eye for, like, making them look better or tightening them up and moving them on, and then I did it for a living.
It's amazing. So you said you sort of grew up with cars. What do you mean by that?
My dad has always had passions for cars as well, so I was always around nice cars and stuff like that, and I was motor-fueled. I was never into football. Cars was always my thing.
And when you got into that business yourself, were there certain kinds of cars that you were particularly interested in?
At first, anything I could make money on. I do love old cars, I always have. But what I did was I actually bought my first house, and the day my mortgage completed, I quit my job. So, and then that's when I started my business, because I was knackered when I had to make it work. So that's what I did. Pressure was on.
What is, in your opinion, I mean, if you could own one car,
I mean, I get this question.
Like Lamborghini, Ferrari.
I get this question a million times, and do you know what? When you work with them, you actually end up hating them. You love them to look at, but you know how much of a pain they are.
Yeah, like vintage Ferraris are hard work,
yeah,
aren't they?
Of course. They're only good to look at.
They conk out, don't they?
They conk out, they overheat, they're a nightmare.
Lotuses are just a piece of crap.
Always, have been.
But look amazing.
They look great, though. But those types of cars, all you can really do with them now is put them in your living room, if you're that lucky and you've got a massive living room, and just look at them.
Yeah.
You know, they're no good for nothing else.
My personal favourite is 80s Mercs.
Yeah, OK.
Yeah, you know that sort of iconic SL? The soft
that's worth a fortune now.
What a car. This was the car driven by Bobby Ewing in Dallas. You're probably too young. You'll have to Google that later.
I will.
But you know, Dallas was a massive soap opera in the 80s, and he had a red Mercedes SL, the soft top convertible, iconic bit of kit.
And now, probably worth a fortune.
Most certainly. And so what sorts of cars are you selling now? Is it all sorts, or is it premium?
Do you know what? I've always done a lot of German cars, so I've always done like, a lot of BMWs and stuff like that. Just because of the right reliability factor, they never really gave me a lot of trouble. I went into selling Range Rovers, and they're just nothing but a nightmare. Really? But now, anything that I can earn money on.
Yeah,
I can't be that fussy.
No, and do you have like an outlet, or do you sell them online? How do you...
Sell them online. So I actually stock a friend of mine as well, because then I don't have the stress of having to do anything, which is always good.
Have you got what have you got for me? Because at the moment, let me tell you, I need some help. We're going to get to Katie in a minute, and also the unfair press that you've had, and come straight to that. But I've got a 2010 Toyota Prius. I think it's 1.5 litre engine hybrid job.
Yeah.
It's done 64,000 miles. It's battered and bruised. So what have you got for me?
And is that cheap
I'm ready to change.
I bet that's cheap to run. You're not going to be able to get anything cheaper than that.
Oh, I mean, I
Stick with it. You battered and bruised it. Run it into the ground.
And I could do a little bit of, Uber work.
What do you want? Oh, you could do Uber work.
This is my plan B, career-wise.
You could do that special Uber work where you're like the celebrity Uber driver and they don't know who you are until you get in there.
That's it. And I'd be a taxi driver with an opinion.
You could learn to rap as well, and you could do all the singing. Have you not seen that on YouTube?
Oh, is that right?
It's brilliant. They do it.
Right, I'm on it. I'm a versatile man, if nothing else. So that's it. That's your big passion, your cars. You fell in love with a famous woman. Did you think twice before entering into that relationship, knowing just what an icon she is?
Look, I'm not going to lie. I knew what an icon she was, of course. I'm sure we all did.
Is it true you had pictures of her on your wall?
Of course. Listen, any young lad at my age that said they didn't, they're lying. End of. But I never followed that type of... I've never, ever followed celebrity life. So I never had any expectations. All I saw was, look, she's fit. And it was as far as that. And then when I got to know her, there ain't no guy in this country that when Katie Price wants to meet you, you're going to say no. Correct. It just don't happen.
She's a very beautiful woman.
Mate, I was in that car quicker than you can imagine.
I bet you were. We know that she's, therefore, she's a model. She's a beautiful lady. She's got a lot of presence, hasn't she? You know when she's in the room.
Yeah, normally you can hear her first, actually.
What?
You can hear her first.
Is that right?
Normally.
Is that what happens?
No.
Yeah, she's quite loud. Well, that's right. So I know Katie well because we did a radio show together on Fubar Radio.
Yeah, she did mention.
A lot of fun. She was brilliant, and what I saw was the real Katie. Very, very funny, but also quite humble, quite shy, quite private, and very much a family person.
Very much so, and that's an attractive quality. It's an attractive quality to hold.
Yeah, for sure. So you two, you've fallen in love. It's been a wonderful relationship, engaged. First of all, before we get to the press treatment of you, can I just clear up? Are you still engaged?
Well, look, when I left the house earlier, she still had the ring on. So I'm hoping when I get back, it's still there.
Let me tell you, Mrs. Dolan wears the ring. It means nothing.
Well, I'm hoping that my one's not the same.
It means nothing. But look, that's wonderful news. So congratulations. So that story was what? Just some made up nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Lies?
A lot of it, yeah, complete lies. A lot of it, the truth never sells, does it? And this is what I've learned. Like, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Unfortunately for Kate, she doesn't know any different. I know what it's like to have a normal life. So when these things are happening, it's just completely and utterly unfair. And what it is we're living in a society now where people are like really believing this stuff, and these newspaper articles, as far as I'm concerned, should be treated like fiction books. They're designed as mild entertainment, let's be right, okay? But people are taking that mild entertainment now and taking it to the next level. And people are losing their lives over it, and that's not cool.
Well, that's right, because it's and this is what I think maybe the public don't register, or some of the public, and certainly the press don't register, is that you're all human beings with feelings.
Everybody's got feelings, and I'm lucky because I've walked into Kate's life, and I'm thick-skinned. There ain't really much that gets to me, but even me at the weekend yesterday, it just went too far for me, But if you're not thick-skinned, I can see why people are taking their own lives over this stuff. And, You know,
Well, we just saw it, didn't we? Caroline Flack.
Yeah, of course.
Been in show business for a long time, and therefore you'd think that she, like you, would have a thick skin, but it catches up with you in the end.
It does, and you know, let's not forget it. I live with a woman that's had this for like years and years and years, and has been mentally damaged by it, really. You know, and it's just not fair. It's not fair and it's not right. So I think that there should be something in place that, you know, should make a change. If there's a story written and it's a source story, well, this source should be named. It can't just be made up, you know.
And if it's a lie, as we saw with Colleen Rooney in the Wagatha Christie trial, well, then actually justice should be served.
Exactly.
If you're
that.
being lied about, actually that's a libel, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and I feel like I was character assassinated yesterday with some of the headlines, and that's what tipped me over the edge.
Yeah.
You know, I can't...
what are the press trying to do? They're characterising you as this, a troublemaker, or that's come in to use Katie or something? Even though you're a man with your own career, your own money?
Look, you're always going to get tarnished with that brush anyway. As soon as you go out, I can imagine with somebody of Kate's calibre, everyone's going to say...
Unless you're Bill Gates, you're a gold digger.
Of course, but I had my own stuff going on before. You know, I don't need Kate for nothing. I've never taken nothing from her. But that's not even that deep, because you can ignore that stuff because you know that's not true. It's deep when it's like it's real nitty gritty, you know, and then it's like it's affecting your head. That's when it gets nasty, you know.
So tell me about that. You look at the lies written about you this weekend, and by the way, you've had a drip feed of misinformation about you and Katie for months, right? Probably since you started dating.
The last year,
So what goes through what are your emotions when you switch on your computer or you pick up a paper and you read about yourself? What was happening in your head?
Look, it's always been really alien to me. Like, Kate's really good at ignoring a lot of it. But to me, it's always been like, you know, I'd go through phases where I'd want to read every single thing. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not true, that didn't happen. Like, why is that being said? And she would say, oh, just ignore it. And to be fair to her, she said to me yesterday, ignore it. What are you doing? But you always get to that point where you just think, you know what, enough's enough now. Because like I said, people don't treat this stuff as fiction. They're not treating it like that.
You're a proud man. So
Very
to
much
see
so.
yourself dissed like that is disrespectful and upsetting, I would have thought.
I'm very old school. So I've been brought up in a very old school way. So when these things are being said...
you give it as good as you get?
I've been known to. I've given it back to trolls, and you know, I've never ever made one with anyone first, but I have defended myself.
Which you were brought up to do?
Yeah. You know, there's only so long that you sit there in silence. As far as I understand.
And then, of course, there's your pride, and then there's also your protection of the woman you love.
Of course. Because naturally, you know, when you love your family, you don't like people saying... You're not going to like people saying things about them, false things. And you can see... What nobody sees is no one sees the damage that it does behind the scenes. And that is, you know, that is just completely despicable.
And without being too invasive, but just so people can understand, what does go on behind the scenes? You know, you mentioned Katie, who I think is a really amazing human being. She's had a problem, she's made mistakes, but she's a remarkable and authentic person. When you said that she's a bit damaged by it, and when you talk about what people don't know, what is the impact?
That won't be I won't talk about that here, because that's something that Kate will talk about when she's ready to talk about, and she's come off of social media, and I'm going to respect her privacy in that. But for me, to see them things written about me, you know, it's just infuriating. It's infuriating. I can tolerate, like I said, a lot of the general rubbish that gets written. You know, you say, oh, OK, whatever, that's quite obviously not true. But when you're character assassinating and you're getting personal, that then becomes a bit of a problem.
And does it affect, I mean, has it affected your well-being, you know, your mental or physical 100%. Well-being? Really, how for you, how has that manifested?
Because what it is it's like Chinese water torture. It just doesn't stop. It drips, and it just knocks you down. It knocks you down, and eventually you do get to a point where you do kind of start self-doubting yourself. You think, hang on a minute, is this really what I'm giving out to the universe? Is this what people are seeing? And you have to bring yourself back to
So
reality.
you're like, am I a bad man? Am I worthless?
Yeah,
am I a bad partner?
Of course, you've got to keep yourself straight and level-headed, 1,000,000%.
And I mean, how sort of bad has it got for your mental health? Because I mean, I really don't want you to go to too dark a place on this, because that shouldn't happen.
Well, 2 years ago, I didn't know what mental health was. You know, and it became actually such a big thing during COVID, didn't it? Everybody suffered.
Massive.
And then to get the constant, backlash and abuse, then yeah, it does. It gets to you.
Have you got any thoughts about how you'll manage this going forward? I hope this interview, which will be amplified across the press, let me tell you.
Oh, and I'm sure they'll write something that, I've said wrong or done wrong.
Well, I hope that they quote you verbatim, because...
Hopefully.
I've got a compassionate audience who will see a human being here with feelings,
Hopefully.
Protecting himself and the woman he loves. And the Mirror, the Sun, the Express, they'll all be watching this. And I hope that you get that right to reply.
Thank you.
Do you have a thought about how you're going to, because you're very committed to Katie, I know that. So do you have a thought about how you're going to navigate this going forward? Because unfortunately, it's probably not going to go away, is it?
Of course it's not. You just got to learn how to handle it. It is, unfortunately, it's just one of those things. And it shouldn't be, but it is.
But we saw, didn't we, with the hounding of Diana and other celebrities, that this can have very serious consequences.
It's death. That's the consequence of this. People are getting killed and they are taking their own lives because they can't handle... And it's not even so much that they can't handle the story. They can't handle the fact that the public are not treating it like a fiction book and they're getting the backlash. And whatever way you look at it, the media is responsible for that.
Well, listen, you've got an open platform here anytime.
Thank you
and
so
you can
much.
always set the record straight.
Thank you.
And contradict the lies.
Thank you.
You look brilliant, and I wish you and Katie every happiness.
Thank you so much.
I will do my little tabloid hack question, which is, we're going to see a wedding at some point, right?
Of course. She's lovely.
That's the plan. And there'll be quite a fancy car involved, I would have thought.
Well, I don't know. Let's see what I've got for sale at the time.
Really?
If not, I'll borrow your Prius.
Take the Prius. We get, but smooth out some of the bumps.
At least it's battered already.
It's very fuel efficient.
Perfect.
I think it'll be a white Bentley. But listen, a privilege to have you on the show. Send my love to Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
And listen,
it's a pleasure to meet you.
Look after that lady and look after yourself.
Thank you.
There we are. Carl Woods. Fascinating conversation. I think that's the other side of celebrity culture. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Lots more to come. We've got the papers and also in the news agenda with my brilliant panel. Is the dream of early retirement over? Also, do criminals have rights too? And at 10:30, we've got tomorrow's papers. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
I'll get to your emails shortly. Thank you for the emails that have been coming in thick and fast, and it's such a priority, but we've had a terribly busy show. But I will get to your emails in a couple of minutes, and we've got the papers as well at 10:30. But reacting to the big stories of the day, my amazing panel tonight. I love my panel tonight. Writer, broadcaster and former Conservative MP, Edwina Currie, formerly of 5 Live. She's won Mastermind twice. She beat me on the second occasion. Wellbeing journalist, a brand new voice for the show, Emily Lavinia, who also builds brands as well. And we've got author, lawyer and broadcaster, good friend of Mark Dolan tonight, Rebecca Jane. Now, let's talk about retirement. Pope Francis has recently come out and said his Canada trip showed he may need to retire. At the age of 85, he feels this is a bit of a test and that at his age, he has to think about the possibility of stepping aside. However, we have people like David Attenborough, Judi Dench and the Queen, who look set to never retire. Well, given the financial crisis and the drop in value of pensions, many people are having to delay their retirement even if they want to do so. With some cancelling it altogether, it begs the question, is the dream of early retirement over? Rebecca Jane, retirement is many decades away for you.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
It's an old-fashioned idea, though, isn't it?
I really think it is, yeah. I don't see myself ever retiring, if I'm being brutally honest, because I think that today we've kind of changed what we want out of life.
Yeah.
We now have jobs and we now have careers that we love, we take part in, and we do what is best for us and what we enjoy. You know, whereas on my grandparents' generations, they were weavers and engineers and more traditional jobs, whereas now it's not about a job, it's about a lifestyle. So I don't see me ever retiring. I think there'll always be something fun that I want to do and turn it into a career.
Same thing, you're a similar generation to Rebecca Jane, Emily. Does the idea of retirement seem a little abstract and out of date?
I think it does, but I think for 2 reasons. The first is obviously that the cost of living is rising and many people are assuming that they will have to work for longer. But the other is that we are more creative about work. Lots and lots of people have multiple income streams. Lots of people, as Rebecca said, do turn their lifestyle into a job. I myself had very different views on what I might be doing now. I've managed to carve out a career that suits me, but I do lots of different things that perhaps I'll never stop doing.
So, yeah, you anticipate always working. The previous idea of retirement is that you would do a job perhaps that you didn't like until the age of 65, and then you would sit in the garden for a couple of years and then, being blunt about it, have a massive heart attack and then that would be it. But now we're living longer and there are all these years into our 70s and 80s where we could be productive.
Absolutely, but it does also mean that we should be looking out for ourselves a little bit more. If we do think that perhaps we might never retire, we do need to be thinking about our health, and that is obviously something that, as a health writer, I am thinking about every single day.
Well, yeah, we need to come back to that. Edwina Currie, I mean, that's the point about retirement, is when it was first conceived post-war, it was affordable because people died in their 60s and early 70s. They don't do that anymore.
Well, I'm 75. What's retirement? Would somebody
Yes, I
explain
know.
it to me, please?
I think you're busier than ever, aren't you?
I'm pretty busy. But actually, I would disagree with you. One of the effects of COVID has been that more people have not come back to work, particularly older people. They've enjoyed being at home. They've enjoyed being with their families. They built up quite a nest egg during COVID. And, you know, they haven't been going out.
Yeah.
And they've looked at it and thought, do you know what? I don't want to go back to work. And that's a real problem. You try getting a plumber, you try getting a builder, you try getting a carpenter to do things in the house. They've retired, they've given up, they're on a cruise somewhere, and good luck to them. I hope that they will actually come back. I hope that they will find that, you know, retirement is all very well, but you do get bored. And then somebody will say to you, could you do this? Could you do that?
Of course. Like we do with you every 10 minutes.
Thank you.
We don't give you any peace. When you're not writing books and presenting TV shows and being on the radio. We never want Edwina Currie to retire. Now, it's time for this. 10:30 at 10:30 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we do the papers, hot off the press. And let's have a look at the Metro, first of all. And here's their headline. Inevitable and very joyful, this one. It's a photograph of the England women's team winning the Euros. No more years of hurt. Lionesses' rawsome Euro win ends England's 56-year wait for a trophy. England 2, Germany 1. What a handsome score that is. Financial Times next. West eases Russian oil curbs as inflation and energy risks mount. The Independent next. History. England beat Germany to end wait for Lioness's first major trophy. What a photograph. A jubilation, I think is the word. The Eye newspaper next. The day it came home. True moment of national celebration. Next up, the Daily Telegraph. It's come home. England 2, Germany 1. I shall be repeating that particular score late into the night and early next morning, which will make me very unpopular with my German wife. She's not happy. Sunak pledges 4% income tax cuts. Rival leadership camp calls ex-chancellor's move to ease the burden for millions a tactical flip-flop. There you go. So Sunak there moving on the issue of tax, although I suspect he'll tell us we've got to wait for it, Edwin, and we'll come to that shortly. Zahawi comes off the fence to give Booster Truss his backing. And for now, the Sun newspaper, and they've gone for a wonderful special double-page front page, and it's the Sun, move over, fellas, it's home. And a wonderful quotation from the Queen, from Her Majesty. You've all set an example that will be an inspiration for girls and women today and for future generations. By the way, a good description of the Queen as well. Come on, England. What a victory. And for now, those are the front pages. Let's get full panel reaction. And I think the Sun get the tone just right, Emily. Move over, fellas. It's home. Because the blokes have had years and years of opportunities to win a trophy. They haven't. I mean, yes, they've tried and there have been some great moments. But it's the women that got it across the line.
Quite right. I love the tone, and I do think move over fellas is right. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we had an FA ban on women's football, so now it is time to make room.
Yeah, well, that's it. The men were waiting 56 years. So what it is, Edwina, if you want a job done, ask a woman.
I think if you want a job done, you have to have a team. And the women on the pitch were only part of the team. You know, the backup group, all the coaches, everybody else, they're all part of that, and they should get as much credit. And some of them, Mark, were blokes.
Yes, that's a really good point. That's right. The manager is a man, or at least the sort of the head, what can you say, head of coaching. It's a woman that's the manager, and then there's a guy who oversees it. Look, that's the point. Who cares what the gender is, right?
What I loved was when it was over and everyone came on the pitch and they were hugging each other, it didn't matter. It actually didn't. I'm one of those people, I don't like the world divided in a binary way, male, female, whatever, you know. I like to feel that we're all human beings and that we can work together. And it was teamwork that won this, and actually creating a team where they felt as they were all part of something together. And it showed. Now what'll happen is that the women on the pitch will start to make a lot of money. As you come up the escalators in the tube, you can see that some of the women footballers are now being used as stars for a bank. We won't name which one, but, you know, a start-up bank has picked on some of the women. I hope they make a mint. They deserve it. They've worked so hard. It's great to see.
You did it in politics in the 80s.
I didn't make a mint out of politics. Well, you can't if you're an honest
You didn't make enough money, which is why you're here tonight working on a Sunday night. But you had to work in a very male-dominated field, which was politics.
Oh my God, yeah. We didn't actually have enough. We just about had enough for 2 women's teams with 1 sub. We had 23 women in the House of Commons in 1983.
And also, what about the culture in the Commons? Just the bars, the smoking, and all of the sort of male-dominated environment that was Parliament?
Well, I was used to that to some extent, because I'd served on Birmingham City Council for a rather long time, and I'm a Scouser, come from Liverpool.
So you were familiar with smoke-filled rooms?
I was familiar with all sorts of things, you'd be surprised. You just have to sort of focus very clearly on what you are trying to do, on what you're trying to say, on the point you're trying to put across. And if someone's being grotty, I don't know, sometimes you look for the belt and hit below it. Like, I mean, you know, your German wife, I feel so sorry for her.
Yes, she's very long-suffering, let's be honest. Rebecca Jane, the wonderful thing about sport is that it is a meritocracy. There's no place for identity politics in sport.
Yeah, I think that what we need to do is we need to be so inclusive that we don't need to keep on doing male, female and all the rest of it. We just need to be as we are and let it be. You know, there's so much talk about gender in all of this. We've got a team that has won, and that is it for me. We don't need to keep on banging on that it's a female team. Let's just be inclusive. We don't have to keep putting a label on it.
Because we don't do that in tennis, do we? Because tennis is one of my favourite sports. And we don't talk about, oh, isn't it amazing that a woman has won Wimbledon? It's like, no, Serena Williams is just an amazing, globally recognised athlete.
Yeah, it's like, why do we have to keep putting a label on it? We don't need to keep getting these virtue signalling flags out every 10 seconds. Like, oh, wonderful, we're all championing the women now. We should be just doing it constantly.
Now, Rebecca, Jane, let me drag you kicking and screaming back to politics.
OK.
Front page of the Daily Telegraph, Nadeem Zahawi comes off the fence to give booster Truss his backing. Now, that's code for he thinks she's going to win and he wants a job.
Of course it is, yeah. You know, again, it's just let's play the favourite game.
Do you think that the likes of Kemi Badenoch are smart to keep their counsel? Because I understand that she's not going to declare for anyone.
Yeah, actually, and I have more respect for her for doing that because she's not coming out and trying to just back the favourite. Who wants to do that? Just be authentic. We have a government now that are not authentic and we need to start somewhere. And unfortunately, I couldn't care less what they think.
Is Kemi Badenoch the one that got away?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Well, because I think I made this point last time we were on the show, that if Conservatives want to win again, they need to have the person that the public are backing. The public have backed her wholeheartedly. I believe that that would have been the person that they would have the best chance with. They've gone down their own little route. Liz Truss is probably going to become Prime Minister. And actually, if you wanted a slam dunk victory, I think you should have gone for Kemi.
Might you have liked to have seen Sunak versus Badenoch in the final two?
Absolutely. And I tweeted that several times because then we would have had a really high-quality intellectual debate with some superb people. And Kemi in particular, because she trained as an engineer, she's used to looking at a problem and figuring out what the solutions are. I'm instinctively hostile to people who produce lots of slogans that sound great. I want to know how it's actually going to work. I want to know if we're going to get results. I want to know what it's going to cost. That's the Margaret Thatcher line, if
Well,
you
she
like.
was a chemist, wasn't she? Similarly, very empirical.
She was an IT specialist and an engineer. The kind of person who will look at a problem, figure out what the solutions are, what the costs are, what the consequences of the different choices, and understand them and sell them. That's a world of difference from the kind of rather superficial politics that we have become a bit used to.
Emily, that's a tantalising question, isn't it? Which is, did Tory MPs choose the wrong two?
I mean, it's quite possible, but unfortunately, I do tend to agree with Edwina that, yes, we need policy over cult of personality, but unfortunately, the two caught one another, and we are going the way of American politics at the moment, whereby it is more of a game show than it is an actual test of ability.
Although some suggestion that Liz Truss is continuity Boris, which could either work for her or against her.
I mean, Boris did very well considering, but again, I would say that is more down to a cult of personality than any kind of success.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, well, look, it's obviously all about opinions. There are people watching this show who are still furious that they've had their Prime Minister taken away from them, out with a public vote. But what about this in the Daily Telegraph as well, Emily? Sunak pledges 4% income tax. Now, you're an expert on branding. And as I discussed earlier on The Big Question, when we consulted the wise words of Emma Best, who is a Conservative politician in London, and she said the great thing about Rishi's brand is that he's consistent on we can't afford tax cuts. Now he's offering tax cuts. That's a little bit wobbly, isn't it?
Yes, I think the other thing about Rishi Sunak is that he is a master of explaining the whys and wherefores of his decisions. So whether or not it makes any sense, he'll make sure that it seems like it makes sense.
What does that imply? Smoke and mirrors? Is that you're saying he's sort of deceiving people?
Well, there is an element of that, I think, to every campaign, especially of this kind, especially if you do a U-turn on what you've previously said.
Yes, and you were nodding your head when I mentioned Nadeem Zahawi, Edwina Currie, that he's backing Truss because he wants a job.
Absolutely. I'm very glad to see that actually Nadeem Sahawi's managed to pay his sub to the Conservative Party. Did you?
Oh, didn't see that story.
Well, David, the guy who's been in central office, this guy used to work for me, and he checked everybody in the cabinet and all the ministers to find out if they were on the Conservative Party list. And Zahawi's membership actually ran out on May the 16th.
Awkward.
Which tells you that he didn't have a standing order. You have to have a standing order if you don't want your membership to run out. So, but he managed to get it in time, and that meant that, yes, he can vote. It's tacky. You know, somebody as able as Nadeem Zahawi doesn't need to do that. He should carry on as Chancellor for the time being, doing as good a job as necessary. The thing about inflation, and somebody needs to explain it in this country, is that if you want to get prices to come down, people need to change some aspects of their behaviour. Buy less of the expensive stuff. Buy more of the cheaper stuff. And that way and it doesn't have to be everybody. I know not everyone can afford to do this, but those who can should do that. And that means that you will start to get the prices coming down. And you'll get all the suppliers, your Tesco's and all the rest of it, competing to get the cheaper stuff, because that's what people are buying. If we just put more money into people's pockets, that does not happen. And this time next year, we will still have inflation.
We've got the Mail, the Guardian and the Times coming after the break. Rebecca Jane, just briefly, this in the Financial Times. The West eases Russian oil curbs as inflation and energy risks mount. There we are. We've cut off our noses to spite our face, hoisted on our own petard. We cannot really afford these sanctions against Russia because we're running out of gas.
Honestly, I can't deal with this situation. This is exactly where we're going to end up in World War III. No. This has got to stop. We have to start fracking. We have to do something about it. We can't keep relying on Russia for anything, in my personal opinion. Concern.
Yeah, Emily?
Severe.
A concern on this, a tension between the drive to reduce our carbon emissions in the West versus the need for energy.
Yeah, I don't disagree on the tension, although I would disagree. I am personally anti-fracking, so I can't say that I come down on the same side as Rebecca, but I do agree with her. It has to stop.
Would you forgive an easing on the sort of push away from fossil fuel for the medium term?
I think perhaps if the right case were delivered, you know, I'm always open-minded with anything, and I'm always here to have my mind changed.
But fracking is a no-no?
I would say so. But, you know, as I say, I'm not proud enough to say that I am correct on any subject. I'm always willing to have my mind changed.
Well, that's refreshing, isn't it?
Well, the country that's in real trouble, of course, is Germany. And that's because Angela Merkel, Mutti, over all those years, was
the most overrated politician of the last
absolute
decade.
Sucker. She thought she understood the Russians, but I tell you what, the Russians understood her.
And she was schooled by none other than Donald Trump in 2018, who told Germany, you are too reliant on Russian gas.
Well, he was too friendly with the Russians at the same time, of course. So, you know, all a pinch of salt stuff. I am keen to see that Rolls-Royce in Derby, which is working on small modular reactors, nuclear reactors, is given a real boost. This is going to happen. The tragedy is that none of this stuff, either fracking or nuclear, is going to happen in the next couple of years. I blame David Cameron. Slogans, get on with it. Never did.
Very disappointing indeed. What a missed opportunity. Lots more from the papers. We've got The Guardian and The Mail and The Times. Don't go anywhere. Plus another news-based game show. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
A really important email in relation to retirement from Martin. Martin, thank you for your email and for watching the show. Martin says, Mark, people like you and your guests can work till they're 100 years old. In the job I did in the building trade from 14 until the age of 70, full of arthritis, I'm now 73 and just taking the doggy for a walk. I miss the good old days. Martin, I hear what you're saying and you raise a very, very important point. Thank you so much for watching the show. There's no job tougher than being a builder. Let's be very clear about that. Also, well done, Lionesses, says Lorna. So many people celebrating England's success. And Pamela says, on fracking, Europe fracks, America fracks, we must explore fracking. There you go. That's from Pam. I'm sure that's a debate that will continue for a long time to come. The emails are flooding in. Let's just cover this on retirement finally from Nikki. Hi, Mark. It should still be a choice. Retirement. Not everyone's got the top-paying, fantastic job. Some people are in jobs that are very, very difficult and stressful, and they're probably better off retiring. So it's not for everybody. You're looking at a different class if you're in a top job and earn good money and you can carry on brilliant. It should still be a choice. And I think you're very, very wise on that. Kind words from Nikki. She really enjoys the show. You really touch on subjects that need touching on where nobody others dare to go. Well, look, thank you for that. I do try, Nikki. Look, thanks for it. And do tell your friends if you're enjoying the programme and keep those emails coming. All right, let's crack on now with more stories from the papers. This one's absolutely fascinating. It's front page of the Daily Mail and it's more England joy. But I love the headline. It wasn't a dream. We did beat Germany in a final. England 2, Germany 1. Rampant Lionesses roar to historic victory. OK, Guardian now. Game changers. Very, very good description. England's women make history at Wembley against Germany with a whole nation in raptures. The Times Lionesses bring it home. England women crowned Euro champions after tense 2-1 victory. It was tense, by the way. What about that German equaliser? Broke a nation's hearts, but we bounced back. The Queen hails inspirational team. Let's have a look at a couple of other stories. This one was fascinating. A woman from Britain has shared her anger about being burgled after being told by police officers that burglars have rights too, when she suggested putting spikes on her garden fence to prevent that from happening again. It's reported that there were more than 40,000 house burglaries in London alone last year. Only 3.8% ended with the culprit being found or punished. So it begs the question, do criminals have rights too? I think we should go to the lawyer.
This is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
I was told the same thing I had a locksmith round and I said, oh, can I put some barbed wire on that fence? He said, no, because the burglar will hurt themselves.
Yeah, well,
And
what
you'll get
world
sued.
are we living in?
So you'll get sued and you'll get your collar felt by the boys in blue.
Listen, OK, this is actually what would happen in reality. So I think there was a case where did a guy shoot a burglar?
Oh, yes.
And yes.
Tony Martin.
Yes, and then he got found guilty and then in mitigation, in sentencing, he got released. And I think that that's kind of where this comes down to, that technically, yes, it would be illegal or whatever, but then when it actually comes down to the sentencing part, mitigation is that, well, this person was breaking into my house, I feared for my life, OK, fair enough, off you pop.
Yeah.
So, no, you know what? I'm I'm all for putting some spikes outside my house. If you want to come and... I know Edwina has a different opinion than me, but if you want to come and burgle my house, absolutely not. No, you'll get what you deserve. Sorry.
Edwina?
Well, I read this woman's article, a long complaint, and she's been burgled more than once, both times with people actually walking through the open French windows, which you can see from the street, and taking stuff off her kitchen table. What is it about shut the windows and lock them that you do not understand?
We shouldn't have to live like that.
Well, but we do.
But you do want to live like that when you're at home on a nice warm summer's day.
I'm sorry. If people can look in and see you've left your laptop, your phone, your wallet and everything on the kitchen table, and they can walk in and just take it, then somebody's going to try that. However, what you don't do, it's not a proportionate response to try and kill them. That's not what you do, right?
Although, what about if they kill themselves on the way in? I think I could live with that.
But if you create a dangerous environment, it could be you or your child or somebody else's that actually gets hurt. Impaling on a spike is a particularly nasty way of getting hurt. That is not a great idea. So the first thing is actually take basic precautions, lock windows or whatever. If you're going to leave the door wide open, put the stuff where it can't be found, preferably on your body or whatever. But, don't offer burglars or thieves or opportunists the opportunity and then say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it up you. That's not a good idea.
This titan, this icon of conservatism's gone woke. Emily, help me out. Throw me a bone.
I mean, I do agree with Edwina. I think burglar's going to burgle. And if you want to go full Kevin McAllister and put DIY booby traps around your house, that's mad and a hazard, and you should take better security precautions.
Emily, you're victim blaming, and here's the thing.
Absolutely.
When you break into someone's house, you leave your human rights at the door. That's what I think.
No, you don't.
I don't agree with that. And I do think that this woman, I did read the article, and I do think this woman, if you've been burgled once, maybe get better security for your home. I don't think that the booby traps are the answer. And I do feel bad for anybody that has their house burgled, because it's not a nice experience. And obviously people should not steal things from others. Unfortunately, they do. So that is something that we have to contend with.
And, of course, what happens if you're older and you do that sort of thing is you forget where you put the booby traps, and you know what? You walk straight into them. Not a great idea.
I agree with you. I think when you've got family, if you're an older person, it is just asking...
Could be a legitimate visitor.
OK, all right. Well, look, an interesting conversation. I'm with RJ on that, but it is all about opinion. Let's play this. It is time to play the Great British Game Show, and with the England women victorious in the Euros at an all-female final, beating Germany. We're celebrating women tonight, rightly so, with our amazing all-female panel. That's not a story, and why should it be? In that spirit, tonight's Great British Game Show is called Girl Power. Can my panel and you at home name these iconic female groups? Let's start with this one.
Nope. The Golden Girls.
Yes, Emily, how did you get that reference? You will have been a twinkle in your mother's eye when that was on TV.
I love camp culture.
Is that right? So have you watched it? Have you watched the Golden Girls?
The Golden Girls.
Hilarious, isn't it?
Very funny.
RJ, you never seen the Golden Girls?
No.
And you were too busy in Parliament at the time. OK, next girl group. Let's have a look.
Destiny's Child.
Easy.
Destiny's Child, well done. OK, how about this one? Famous TV show?
Sex and the City.
Well done. OK, how about this movie troupe?
Charlie's Angels.
That's right, the update. Prefer the original, I'll be honest. How about this rather impressive offering?
Women's Hour.
It is, which I think is a brilliant radio show. One of my favourite bands from the 80s. Here we go, next up.
That's a band?
That doesn't look like a band to me.
That's not a
No,
band.
that's the Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, no.
No, it's not. Who is it?
Bridesmaids.
OK, well, there you go. I tell you what, they're all brilliant, as were my amazing panel tonight. Thank you so much to Edwina, RJ and Emily, and most importantly, thank you to you. The show is nothing without you. So do join me on Friday at 9 when I'm back in the hot seat. Dan Wotton's here on Monday, tomorrow at 9. And stick around because I'm doing headliners.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry, but with some showers in the east, clear spells in the west. Let's take a look at the details. Across Scotland, it'll be mostly dry, though there will be some isolated showers in the east. The best of any sunshine will be across the western half of the country. After a cooler night, it will be a dry start to the week across Northern Ireland, with clear spells around, especially